12 News at 10 with Mark Curtis and Caribe Divine starts now.
And we begin tonight with the new controversial border bill that will now be decided by Arizona voters. Good evening and thanks so much for joining us for 12 News at 10. I'm Caribe Divine.
I'm Mark Curtis. HCR 2060, better known as the Secure the Border Act, would allow all law enforcement agencies to arrest people crossing the border illegally. But a nonpartisan committee says that voters approving it would come at a significant cost to the state.
12 News journalist Chase Golightly read that committee's report. And Chase, it points out that there is no funding associated with this bill to pay for law enforcement.
Creepy, Mark, and that could create some serious problems for the taxpayers here in Arizona. Those organizations and nonpartisan groups looked into just how much this would cost and estimate it could be hundreds of millions of dollars to billions every single year.
It's a bill that has led to several protests. The Secure the Border bill would allow police officers, sheriff's deputies, state troopers, any law enforcement entity to arrest people crossing our border illegally. But the cost associated with that is raising concerns.
If this bill gets approved by voters, how much is it going to cost taxpayers?
We estimated the cost at being at least $325 million based on how it was introduced about a month ago.
Dave Wells with the Grand Canyon Institute says his research looked into costs for enforcing HCR 2060. One issue he discussed, the bill makes it a crime to submit fraudulent documents to the E-Verify system, which he says will put further strain on court costs.
But if you were to incarcerate 9,000 more people in Arizona for 6 months, it would cost about $140 million.
The bill was modeled after a Texas bill that does nearly the same thing. But Wells points out Texas allocated more than $1 billion to fund enforcement. Even though Arizona has a smaller border compared to Texas, Wells says our state still can't spare the money.
At the same time, we have teacher shortages and other kinds of infrastructure needs in the state, and this is going to compete with those for that. And so that's going to be a real challenge.
GCI isn't the only organization looking into this. A report done by the Federation for American Immigration Reform estimates HCR 2060 will cost the state $3.2 billion annually. Both are listed in this Joint Legislative Budget Committee report, a nonpartisan group that researches costs for bills. It claims the Arizona Department of Public Safety would spend millions of dollars for enforcement, courts would have to pay more for transportation and interpreter services, and the Department of Corrections would have to pay about $17 million in 2025 to house all the inmates. Now, there is a disclaimer saying more data needs to be collected, but lawmakers believe this is a bill that needs to pass.
We know that the dangers at the border are real.
This is about life and humanity.
And Chase, this is a bill that really falls on law enforcement to take action. Did you hear from any agencies who are either for or against this?
Well, Creepy, I did reach out to several local and state agencies. They didn't want to comment on this, but just speaking with sources involved in those law enforcement organizations, they say that they don't have the staffing or funding to carry out this bill if it's approved by voters in November. They're also concerned that the legislature hasn't attached any funding to this. They're hoping that could change once a budget is released later this year, so we'll have to wait to see. For now, we're live in Phoenix. Chase Golightly, 12 News.
Chase, thanks. New tonight, fire crews in Fountain Hills were able to put out a fire that forced some residents in the area to evacuate just as a precaution. Fountain Hills Fire responded to the Fountain Hills Boulevard and Arrow Drive around 8 o'clock tonight. The fire was burning in a wash between the two streets, and crews immediately started working to protect nearby homes. They were able to get it fully contained by 8:30, saying there's no longer a threat to the community.
If you are a hiker, we have a reminder for you tonight. All Phoenix trails will close tomorrow through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. because of the heat. Last year, the city voted to extend the closure hours on days with excessive heat warnings. Previously, trails were closed from 11 a.m. until 5. Phoenix Fire pushed for the change, though, saying that they responded to as many as 4 rescues in a day last summer.
Let's check in with meteorologist Lindsay Riley. And Lindsay, we're about to go from hot to dangerously hot.
Dangerously hot for the next 3 days, and that's why we have an excessive heat warning beginning tomorrow through Friday evening for all of western Arizona, south central, the lower elevations of Yavapai County, and the lower elevations of the Grand Canyon. Temperatures are going to be as hot as 114 degrees, which is very dangerous. It's the first excessive heat warning for the year, and tomorrow will be our first 110 of the year. We'll be 3 degrees shy of a record high tomorrow, but still very hot. Then we have Thursday, which will be the hottest. That's going to be our record breaker, hitting 114. The record for the date is 111. Then we'll hit 113 on Friday and 109 on Saturday, staying slightly below the records for those days. Even up in the high country, Flagstaff will be close to 90, and we will have 90s in the White Mountains, also along the rim, and some triple-digit temperatures around Sedona. Caribe?
All right, thanks, Lindsay. And we're continuing to track several wildfires that are burning along State Route 87 right now. Starting with the Adams Fire, which started near Fort McDowell on Sunday. More than 200 firefighters are still working on it, with the fire now growing to over 5,000 acres with 30% containment. Officials say that the fire is believed to be human-caused. Meanwhile, to the north, the Spring Fire is burning near State Route 87 and Bush Highway. The fire is over 4,000 acres and is now 70% contained. Officials believe that this one was also human-caused.
And to help prevent more wildfires, much of the state will enter Stage 1 fire restrictions this week. The Coconino, Prescott, and Tonto National Forests will all enter those restrictions beginning Thursday morning. The city of Flagstaff will do the same thing, along with BLM-managed lands in 7 Arizona counties. Under Stage 1 restrictions, fires are not allowed unless they're within an official campfire ring. Smoking and shooting a gun are also banned in most circumstances. Violations are a federal crime and could result in jail time.
The Yavapai County Sheriff's Office is asking for the public's help in identifying the suspects who broke into a pharmacy and stole narcotics. It happened early yesterday morning in Cordes Lakes, and tonight we're hearing from the owner. 12 News journalist Bianca Bono is joining us now from the newsroom after speaking to the owner earlier today. And Bianca, sadly, he said that this isn't the first time that this has happened.
No, Caribe. He said his pharmacies have been targeted multiple times since 2022, and he describes this all as organized crime.
So we're known as Northern Arizona Pharmacy.
For 30 years, Jason Dykstra has been in the pharmacy industry. He owns 3 stores in Arizona, in Chino Valley, Dewey, and Cordes Lakes. And he's noticed a troubling trend: criminals targeting pharmacies and stealing narcotics.
It's happening all over the state, and it's happening all over the country.
And it just happened to him on Monday morning. The Yavapai County Sheriff's Office says security cameras show 2 suspects wearing all black with their faces covered, prying open the front door with a yellow crowbar. Only inside for 2 to 3 minutes, but it was more than enough time for them to break into the cabinet containing all of the narcotics in the pharmacy. They left in a gray car heading towards the highway.
They're generally targeting smaller pharmacies that are independent pharmacies or locally owned.
Sadly, this is far from the first time it's happened to Dykstra. The break-ins date back to June of 2022.
They broke into my Chino Valley store and my Dewey store on the same night.
Police say that night, thieves got away with thousands of dollars worth of narcotics, wearing gloves and face masks to hide their identities.
These are worth money on the street. That's very well known in the practice of pharmacy, and that's what they go for.
In January of this year, it happened again in Cordes Lakes and Chino Valley. Dykstra says the primary victims are patients.
They're hurting the patients that have legitimate prescriptions for these. They damage towns.
He says despite the decades of his life he's devoted to the profession, this organized crime is causing him to rethink his business.
It gets to the point to where you start to evaluate, is it worth it to have a pharmacy open if you're going to have to keep dealing with these break-ins?
And Bianca, because these break-ins are all happening at these smaller pharmacies, have officials linked these incidents together?
Well, Mark, even just looking at those pictures there, you probably notice some similarities, including that big yellow crowbar. And in the past, officials have stated it appears the same people are responsible for these incidents, though Dykstra tells me he believes there are multiple groups targeting pharmacies across the state. I should mention, if you have any information about Monday's incident, you should contact the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office or you can leave an anonymous tip with Yavapai Silent Witness. Guys, back over to you.
All right, Bianca, thanks. Still ahead as we break